welcome to the Sports Steady Podcast. This episode 40 on the podcast, the Sports Steady Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by nobody. We are here February 27, 2024. We're already at the end of the month, folks. We got one more day, and it's over. As we head into March, March Madness is going to be coming right around the corner. You got the NFL Combine, the draft soon. All the rumors and mock drafts and all the experts who's going to say who's going where off season in the NFL. Then the less anticipated NBA down the stretch as they get ready for their playoffs, and then hockey. And then we got baseball opening day coming up real soon as well. But today, we're going to be talking about a couple things. I'm only going to talk about a few topics today. And I'm looking through the wire here on the news stuff. We got most of the stuff we already talked about if you tuned into the Sports Steady Radio over the weekend on Saturday night to Sunday morning on YouTube and Rumble. I kind of addressed some of the stuff already, like the salary cap, Richard Sherman's DUI, Eric Bieniemy, UCLA job. So that stuff, this is really not new news. But one story that did come about over the weekend is Cam Newton was out, had a brawl at some 7-on-7 event. He got into a bit of a fight, so we may talk about that a little bit. And Chiefs signed Matt Araiza. Remember, Matt Araiza was the punter that Buffalo drafted, or kicker, I believe, or punter. And he got accused of sexual assault, and he immediately got cut from the Buffalo Bills. He's been out the NFL since. I think that was like a couple of years ago. But Kansas City picked him up. So that's a big pickup for the Chiefs, because this kid was projected to be a really good kicker. I think Buffalo drafted him, and this guy was legit. So the Chiefs picked him up after the lawsuit has dropped and his name is cleared. So it sucks for Buffalo, but Kansas City gets to pick him up, and good for Matt. He will get his career back, and hopefully, he will be able to, because false allegations, man, those things are dangerous. We've seen the same situation happening with Trevor Bauer, the MLB pitcher who lost his livelihood pretty much over a false allegation. And these are things that are happening way too often now. And there's this large campaign out there about believe all women are right. And look, I understand, you want to be able to protect women's rights and protect them from abuse. I get that. But at what expense continue to push the believe all women narrative and it doesn't do any justice. It doesn't serve anyone good, because not only does it put men in danger, it also doesn't help females, because when it counts, because remember, not all men have the resources to fight these allegations. Typically, if you get caught up in something, you're done. And I know people will say, well, the women who do that usually will go after men with money. No, anybody can get caught up in a false allegation. You get a dispute with a girlfriend or baby moms or children, and she wants to get custody. She knows that she can play the sexual abuse card, and you're done. It could be a guy who's working a 40-hour shift, a regular working guy who has a lot more to lose, in my opinion, because if your reputation is shot, you lose your job, you lose your livelihood, and your margin, your aren't slimmer than a famous guy who may be sitting on a lot of money, or an actor, stuff like that. And you don't have lawyers. There's no male lawyers out there, or even just a group of organization that's out there trying to fight for innocent everyday men who get accused of sexual assault or abuse of any kind. Because once the allegation is out there, it has to be investigated. But during that investigation process, your life is ruined. So whatever job you're working at, they're going to fire you. if you're in a position of power, of authority, you're probably getting fired. Even if it's in your own town or city, you're probably going to be out until the investigation is done. And then if they don't find anything criminal wrong, she will just sue you in civil court if she thinks she can get anything out of you. So it can have, it's a long process to clear your name. And if we don't have the resources, you're done. That's why I strongly believe that who put up to be charged, criminally charged. Because countersuing, what does that do? What, she has to pay money that she doesn't have, probably. She's trying to get money out of you or ruin your life. I think criminal charges, jail time should be the minimum. And public shame, probably. Maybe public shame might be a little too far because, and there are those people that say, oh, that shouldn't happen. Then women won't come forward because they'll be scared that they may be accused of false allegations. So there's always an excuse, right? We always have to protect the women even when they're lying, which is ridiculous. So these guys get their lives ruined, and it's happening every day, all the time. It happens a lot more than people think. So, but many people don't have resources, so they have to just plead out or take a deal, and that's how the system is. The system is so corrupt. I used to be the camp of the people that said, well, if you have nothing to hide, then you shouldn't take a plea. Or there's a whole industry of people being forced to plead guilty to stuff they haven't done across the board. In many cases, whether it be civil, criminal, people, the system, you can't escape it. So you have no money. And it affects people from all backgrounds that don't have money. If you have money, yeah, you can get some lawyers and they can go and drag the case out of court and extend it. You still got to spend a lot of money to do that. And then eventually it'll go away or get a settlement. Or you can hire investigators that can clear your name. The average person can't hire an investigator to clear their name. They got to hope and pray that the initial investigation has some kind of loophole or some kind of inconsistency where your current lawyer could have it without having to spend resources or funds on going out and finding an investigator to clear your name. And these cases are hard to prove. It's hard to prove in your case unless you have like receipts or text messages that back up the claim that she was lying. It's a he said, she said, and she vanished because she reported the crime or reported the alleged assault. And especially when these cases are months ago or years ago. I mean, look at the situation with the former president who was accused of a sexual assault like 50 years ago. But how can you prove you're innocent in that case when, you can't prove it? You can't prove your innocence. So then you get found liable for it, or you might have done it, but there's no proof that you did it. So the system is screwed, man. Like, men get screwed in those regards. So Matt and Trevor Bauer, these guys get their lives back and get their reputations back. Because that's the one thing we all could have. We may not be able to connect with the average athlete because we always say those guys can't relate to us. They make so much money, millions of dollars. But Matt didn't even have, his career was getting started, so he hadn't made any money. And Trevor he had the large contract, but still, I mean, both of those guys are still relatable to the average guy, especially when it comes to false allegations. Any man, if you're making $40,000 a year or $40 million a year, could get caught up in a false allegation. So that's where you draw the line. Like, okay, we all agree. We all are affected by that to a degree. It's not just women trying to get money out of men. The money part usually comes later in many cases because the lawyers are hawks. They're like sharks. Oh, yeah, who is it? Oh, that's a celebrity. You can get this out of them. And the lawyers sometimes push that, or a family member or someone that knows the girl. Sometimes the girls are not initially after the money. They're just more so after trying to ruin your life because whatever, they regret the next day, or they already had a boyfriend, or they already married. I mean, there's many different cases on why the women, some women can make allegations up. It's not always just a money thing, so I'm not going to sit here and say it's all a money grab every single time. But there's other factors at play. Like I said, they're in relationships, they're married. They don't want nobody to find out. Their parents find out, and they panic. So, but I still believe that false allegations, they should be sexual false allegations, any kind of abuse allegations, physically, sexually, should be met with jail time at the minimum. They need a law. Someone needs to grow a pair of balls in Congress and pass a bill, but they won't, or at least draft a bill, but they won't do it because women are like, what, 52% of the population that will immediately, you almost will be asking to be taken out of office. Like it would never pass because the women won't vote on it. And even the women who agree that women shouldn't be doing false allegations, they'll never support it because they want to always have that tool in their belt to hold against. That's like their way of saying, I have the power, I can bring you to your knees at any given moment. And they don't want that taken away. That's just the reality. That's the reality. So anyway. So that's one NFL's with Matt Araiza signing with the Buffalo Kansas City Chiefs. And so Cam Newton, we're going to talk about that as well. Cam Newton had to fight. And also LeBron James. We're going to talk LeBron James. LeBron James, who after there's reports about his on the draft board for 2024. I went into this a few times on Sports City Radio and on this podcast. Told you guys that Bronny's not ready for the NBA and there's nothing wrong with that. But LeBron James came out and responded to an article from ESPN taking his son off of the draft board. So we're going to talk about that probably towards the end of the podcast. But right now, Cam Newton. So Cam Newton was out of the youth football game. Video surfaced Sunday that appeared to show the 2015 NFL MVP involved in a scuffle at a 7-on-7 youth football tournament in Atlanta. It showed Cam Newton wearing one of his custom-made hats being shoved by three people near the top of a set of steps before pushing and shoving and grabbing, moving towards a fence line. The video lasts about 30 seconds before the altercation is broken up by police officers and event security at the Wii Ball Sports X Dynasty U 7-on-7 tournament at BEST Academy. So, according to the article I'm reading here on ESPN.com, says it's uncertain what prompted the altercation, but there are people, the guy who Newton had to fight with, I couldn't find the video. He did an interview. I think he showed up on a couple podcasts to give his side of the story. There's speculation on what happened. I know initially Cam Newton was getting praised for the way he handled the guys, like throwing them off, and people online were like, "Oh, look at Cam just tossing men around." But apparently, there's more details coming in saying that Cam Newton was the provocateur in this situation, and that's just what people are saying now after more details are coming out, and they're hearing this side of the story from the other side, from the other people involved. So, is it for a guy who, a former NFL player? Now, if it's true that Cam Newton started this, he should be ashamed of himself because it's your camp. You got to be a leader. This is poor leadership, and it almost explains why he doesn't have an NFL job today or can't get it on an NFL roster because you can't act like that. You got to be above. It's your camp. You got kids around you, and you're a terrible example of how to act in these type of environments. And this is not new when it comes to these type of places where young kids from the inner cities mostly are in these environments. Remember a few years ago, another former NFL player was involved in some kind of shooting at a youth football camp. So this is the trend of NFL former players or players or athletes who try who go to these places and run camps and organizations, but then they don't bring that leadership. They bring that hood, inner city mentality, and it's just not a good look. You never hear about stories like this happening at camps, at like Peyton Manning camps or camps where like those type of quarterbacks. Who else is a quarterback coach? I think Phillip Rivers. I think he's a coach, and other former guys who are not from that background, you don't hear about fights and stuff happening over there or these type of events. So you got to blame the culture here, folks. The culture is the problem when it comes to the type of behavior that's being perpetrated at these events and the lack of leadership. Leadership, mostly, I would say, number one. I mean, I'm not going to put everything on the footstep of culture, but leadership is number one. Because if you got good leadership, you can keep the culture under control, right? Because there's a time and place. People will be around what they're comfortable with, but leadership is where they're failing at, and it's unfortunate. So I don't know. Me personally, I just think that look, when you got the kids around, you gotta be better. Kids are very important. They're important regardless of where you stand in life. I mean, even I try to be as best as I can. Like if I'm gonna be around youth, young people, even if I'm in a bad mood, I try to at least make sure that it doesn't rub off on the youth or the kids see you in a bad spot. You want to make sure you have some type of positive influence when you're in the presence of children because they see that. They emulate that. That's what they see. So they see Cam Newton tossing off a bunch of guys fighting. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to think they could be cool like that and copy that. Cam Newton is the key member here. Even if Cam didn't really start it and it was around, it didn't just start physical. Something happened. It was probably a bunch of trash talk going on, a back and forth. I mean, Cam has to understand, former NFL player, MVP, you were at the heights of your career. You got to be the bigger person in this situation. You cannot get to the point where the situation turns physical. You gotta learn how to de-escalate. Take it to children. Not like a life or death brawl. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not you're not in the UFC ring where your life is on the line. Like if you're Cam Newton, there's no reason to be getting physical. The only time you should probably get physical is if your life, like there's a life or death situation and you're out in the battlefield. But there's no reason to get to the point where you're in a physical altercation at a 7-on-7 camp. No reason. No reason at all. You know what I'm saying? Like zero reason. But you gotta understand the situation. You gotta know what's going on. So that's that. So that's all I got on the Cam Newton thing. I'm not really more time on that. That's just my thoughts on the Cam Newton situation. All right, so LeBron James, because that's why you guys are really here, right? LeBron James. There was an ESPN tweet that came out, talked about LeBron wanting to, LeBronny James being on the draft board in 2024. Now, we knew that it was a possibility. I mean, at least I knew. I don't know about the rest of you out there, but I knew that Bronny James was not going to be like this high draft pick this year. It just didn't. From the few moments you've seen and a couple of the games, he just is not NBA ready yet. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you say that, they call you a hater and stuff like that. And I just think that's irresponsible. Now, LeBron came off, he had Bronny had a cardiac arrest situation before the year started. And so, he got better. He was ready to start, but he's coming off the bench. He's playing like 20 minutes a night. And he's not really producing great. But people keep saying, oh, just give him time, or this and that, or this. Like, they just keep making excuses after excuses. But LeBron James is the one that put a bullseye on Bronny James when he said Bronny could play for the Lakers. When he said that the tweet, let me go back to the tweet. When he said that, man, Bronny definitely better than some of these cats I've been watching on League Pass today. Shit, lightweight, hilarious. That's what LeBron wrote on the tweet, watching League Pass. He said Bronny is definitely better. So when you telling the world and you're disrespecting NBA players who trained, who got to the league, who are playing in the NBA league on your team, or not on your team, he's talking about the rest of the league. So he's insulting the rest of the NBA, which almost indirectly acknowledging that the league is weak. Because if you had to say that your son, who hadn't really done nothing on the collegiate level, is already better than some of the cats who've been watching on League Pass, you're ultimately admitting that the NBA is weak, right? And which I've been saying for years. So it's good to know LeBron admits that. But the disrespect to your opponents, right? To say that. And at this point, Bronny was still in, I think Bronny was still in high school because this was back in March. So he hadn't even played at USC yet. He was still playing for high school. So when you say your high school son is better than NBA players currently on the roster, high school kid is better. That's a shot at the league. You put a bullseye on your son's back at that point. So remember all the hype, and at that point last year they were hyped up saying that he would be one and done at USC and he's going to be top 10 pick and what team is going to take him. And people were debating if it was going to be Orlando because remember Orlando's projected to have a top pick, but now Orlando's playing pretty decent. But all that stuff, and then so since then, of course, Bronny had the cardiac situation at USC, and his career, kind of took a different turn. But he came back. He's on the court. He's playing, but he's not NBA ready. But people are pointing this out. PN said, hey, we had him on the draft board. We had to take him down because he's not really producing at the same rate as we thought. Maybe he might need another year. And there's nothing wrong with that. LeBron is mad about that. He's upset of NBA of the guy to a lot up. I don't had said kid be a kid and enjoy college basketball. The work and results will ultimately do the talking no matter what he decides to do. If y'all don't know, he doesn't care what a mock draft says. He just works. Earn, not given. So LeBron crying out for help because he's watching the headlines. He sees the tweets. He sees the articles, right? He sees it. So he's responding to it in real time. So he says, let's break this down point by point. First sentence, can y'all please just let the kid be a kid and enjoy college basketball? Let's stop right there. Well, we weren't the ones who were talking about, we didn't start the rumors about him one and done. That came from your camp because you want him to play with you so bad. So the only scenario where he could play with you is to be one and done at USC. That was a realistic scenario that was talked about last year or even the last couple of years, right? Let the kid be a kid. Well, you ain't let the kid be a kid when you put him on blast, when you put the bullseye on his back saying that he can play in the NBA. He's better than some of the cats in the league right now. That's what you said about your high school son. So you put a bullseye on his back. You the one that elevated his status, right? That's what you did. Now, the second part of his tweet, the work and results will ultimately do the talking no matter what he decides to do. That part I can agree with you with because if you're working hard, your results will show, right? That I can agree with. I'm not going to knock him for saying that. That makes sense. That applies to anyone. Then he says, if y'all don't know, he doesn't care about what a mock draft says. That's a lie. Of course he cares. That's why you guys are responding. That's why you're putting out the tweets. Of course he cares. He's probably at home saying, Dad, this is what they're saying about me. Of course he cares. That's why he rushed back after the cardiac arrest. He cares. He wants to prove to his dad, because his dad put the bullseye on his back. You don't think he thinks he failed his dad? His dad said he wanted to play with his son. I don't know if Bronny felt that way or was rushing to feel that way. Maybe not. But why did Bronny choose USC? He probably could have went to any other better program out there for basketball. Right? He chose USC to be closer to his dad. I don't know, was that a decision he made or was that a decision that his dad made? Because he's a guard, so you come into a team that already had an incoming freshman guard that was rated higher than Bronny. Also, there was already a guard on the team that was the leading scorer last year. So already he was already going to be behind the 8 ball, and that was before the cardiac arrest incident. So he was already coming in, going to be fighting for minutes and shots, right? But why did he go to USC? Probably could have went to Ohio State or any other program, but he wanted to be close to his dad. Was that his ultimate decision, or was that LeBron's decision forced on him? So I don't know. I'm not speculating. I don't know the guy's family insides of the James household, but he cares about the mock draft. They all do. They all care. All the kids care about the mock draft. So to pretend that he doesn't, that's just a lie. And LeBron cares about it. That's why he responded to the tweet. They all do. That's what they live for. They watch those mock drafts like a hawk. So that's what they do. So the bottom line is that LeBron knows LeBron is trying to do damage control for his son. And this may ultimately hurt Bronny James in the future because his dad running for cover. I think LeBron should have stayed out of it. If you want to support him at home and say, look, son, don't listen to what's going on, I get that. But to come out on an open platform and to the public and continue to make yourself the spotlight about your son, that's not going to be good for Bronny in the long haul. It's just not. So now, since then, LeBron has deleted the tweet. Now, I don't know if he deleted it because it was advised to him by the people at Clutch, or maybe he realized that, hey, this is not going to be good for Bronny, to keep the spotlight on him and make it feel like he needs daddies to run for cover, right? Because Bronny is now an adult. So maybe, who knows? Maybe Savannah told him, hey, take that down, right? Who knows? Savannah James, his wife. So I don't know. I just think that, look, I agree that let the kid be a kid, let him play college basketball, but why did you put him out there? You should have just let him be, let him develop, and let the chips fall where they fall, instead of putting pressure on NBA teams by saying, hey, whoever draft my son, they're going to get me in the package deal, right? But teams are like, do we really even want you? That's probably why also that Bronny also fell off the board, because teams don't even want LeBron. Like, they see what's going on now with the Lakers. They want LeBron. They're like, dude, are you even worth the trouble? Look, I get it. You can bring a lot of money. You can, bring good economy, stuff like that. But are you worth the trouble? Probably not, unless Bronny is like a superstar. And right now, he is not going to be a superstar. Now, things can change. A year from now, we could be talking about something different. But him staying in school for one more year is probably the best case scenario for him, in my opinion. Whether he comes out or not, I think we'll just see how it plays out. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know. Share your thoughts in the email at sportssteady@protonmail.com, sportssteady@protonmail.com. We're also on social media at sportssteady and at sportssteady live. So if you disagree or agree with LeBron, you disagree with me, let us know. We'll respond to all emails. Matter of fact, let me check the emails before, because I got a new thing now. We check emails before the end of the show to make sure anybody didn't say anything. Okay, emails are pretty quiet. Also, you could join us if you're on Rumble, not Ask, ASKED, ASK. I ask you to subscribe or follow us on Rumble and on YouTube at Sports Steady Radio. That's where I'm going to be at on Saturday nights, Saturday, Sunday morning. And if we get enough people following the channel, I'll do more Sports Steady Radios, probably a couple nights a week. Right now, I'm doing them about one time a week on the weekends. So you can follow us there. And we'll be talking about all the current stuff in sports going on during the weekend. So that's that. Now, let's get out of here. Help desk. Okay. Yeah. Yep, we got nothing else. All right. So we are done. This is the end of the episode 40 of the Sports Study Podcast. I want you guys to enjoy the rest of your week. And we will be back either next week or maybe at the end of the week if something important, something good comes up that I want to talk about. Otherwise, I'll be on Sports Study Radio on Saturday. So have a good week, guys. And remember, sports page run by sports fans. Peace.